I decided to create a little bit of a speech, maybe to have some human element. So I wasn't here yesterday. I heard the programming was really exciting. And often in these conferences, we're looking at statistics and we're looking at what people, as numbers are bringing. And I thought I'd be an example, one person. I have stood up in front of lots of audiences and I have disclosed my gayness. I go to high schools and universities and it's like, ladies and gentlemen, a real live gay, and I get on stage and you can touch me. And they're like, wow, your t-shirt's also from H&M. And I'm like, that's right, children, I'm just like you. But here I stand in front of you and I tell you that I'm HIV positive, which I've never done before. So there are people in this room who know my status, but standing in front of a large audience and saying, I just celebrated my 10th posiversary is new. Thank you. And when I went to public school in Aurora, Ontario, I was called faggot so many times that before the age of 7, I had to ask my mom what that was, because I didn't, understand. And I felt a very strong sense all the way, and into adulthood too, of feeling outside of things. And feeling like I didn't belong, and trying to find inroads into belonging. And when I was thinking about how I got to where I am, a lot of that has to do with being on the outside, looking in, and defining myself as well, being an outsider. And so I think that was a very natural turn for me to become a bit of a performer and to learn to predict what people expected of me and to perform different characters, different versions of myself that would be acceptable. I certainly spend a lot of time defining myself by how I'm different from other people. And so, but the similarities that we share is we all want to be loved. We all want to have family around us. We all want to feel like we're part of something. And so when I was starting to come to terms with my sexuality, I was thinking about ways that I could, be loved. And my presentation is called Positively Forked. And that was, of course, a cheeky play on words because forked sounds like, I'm not going to say it, you guys. But it also, to me, was like, when did I branch out? When did my life change in a really dramatic way? So I came to 2 conclusions. One was I picked a date when that happened. And then the other one took a little bit of time to sink in, which is that I wonder now if there was ever a fork in the road or if I was just walking down the path that was laid out for me. And what I mean by this is when I came out to my mom, who, as I mentioned, is a lesbian, the first thing she said to me through tears was, don't get AIDS. And that fear made me so paranoid that I always use protection. How did you get here then, you guys? Well, I'll explain. This ties into wanting to be connected to people. And I went on a trip. I did a journey abroad in 2006. And I met this guy, and it was in France, and French people are notoriously cold and unfeeling, and this guy wanted to have sex with me, and I thought that meant that he was like in love with me, and we were gonna get married, and he wanted to have sex without a condom. And I thought, well, I mean, I know my status, he must also know his status, and this is the inroad to being loved, being accepted, to finding my way, and I was so excited about the whole thing. I mean, of course, we didn't have a discussion about it, it just happened. And after we had had sex, which was really fantastic, I said, wow, you must never do that, because I never do that. And he was like, well, I always do that. I never use protection. I would never want to know what my status was, because I'd kill myself if I were positive. And it's your fault if you thought it meant anything more than just a hookup. So I reflected back to my, very good Toronto hypochondriac upbringing and thought, well, then I have AIDS. Like, there's no point anymore in trying to prevent anything to change my behavior. I've got it now. And it sounds funny now to think about things that way, but that was really how my gay life was sold to me. That you have one slip up and that's the end. And I came back to Toronto And I very grudgingly went for an HIV test. But of course, I was nervous about it. And I remember telling the doctor that I'd had unprotected sex with this guy. And he said, well, that's not a guarantee. And I was floored. I had never heard anything like that before in my life. But I started to wonder if everything that I'd been told was a lie, and if this whole narrative about gay sex and all of this stuff was a lie. I met this guy, and I also associated his interest in not using a condom as trust and compassion for my situation and care for me. And then, lo and behold, now 10 years later, here I am positive. I left my friend's house, and he had this beautiful house right on the edge of the ocean. And it was in January. And I thought, you're so smart, but you did such a stupid thing. I guess you're stupid. You are standing on this cliff. The only thing that you have left to offer the world is disappointment. And I would love to say that I had this wash over me of pride or some sort of renewal of my spirit, but all I thought was, if you jump into the ocean and die, your parents will be saddled with your university debt, and that is a double shame. And I learned later that actually debts are cleared in that situation. So I would like to thank ignorance for being here today. So it wasn't until February 26th that I received a phone call from my doctor saying that I was actually positive. And I was riding my bike at the time, and this was before headsets. I'm really dating myself. Well, I've already told you, you know my age, but here we go. So I'm like this, riding my bike. My doctor calls and says, your test results are in. And I said, for God's sakes, can you just, this has been a bit of a thing. And he told me, and I went straight to my favorite coffee shop, and I called my best friend. We were walking out together, and I had been riding my bike, and I had left my bag. I had like a little, bag on the handlebars of my bike. And my friend was just grasping at straws for something positive to say. So he's like, see, life's not that bad. Someone could have stolen your bag, and they didn't. And so, ever the drama queen, I fell to my knees and I said, oh, dear merciful Lord, thank you for sparing me my pen. And then we both laughed, and then he said, are you going to be okay? And I said, I think so. And he said, are you sure? And I said, I'm positive. Relationships are tough, and they're tough for everybody. But when you enter the ring already feeling like poison ivy, like a character that is immediately at a huge disadvantage, I remember my very first reaction, this visceral reaction to my status being, no one will ever touch me again. And I know that there are many people in this room who have experienced similar things, and I know that, that this is something that can also, as we age, right, we start to feel like less and less desirable, all of these things. But here I was, 25, feeling, like a sexual prime animal and feeling very undesirable. And so, of course, the first relationship I entered into was abusive, where this man had red flags all over him, but at least he would touch me. And then we have Grindr, and we have blackmail, and we have all this criminalization happening. I was terrified to meet people because I didn't want them to reject me. I didn't want to tell people and have them reject me, and I didn't want to not tell people and have them sue me or send me to prison. And so I chose people with great intention, let's say. I also think that in this room, we have an incredible opportunity, because you are potentially mine or future people like me's caregivers. You're part of my care team. I can go up to you, hopefully any one of you, and say, this thing happened. I was like rejected by another guy, and it feels really terrible. And you can think, I bet you it hurt more because of your status. Or I can say, I was talking to my therapist, and he was really focused on just the sex part of what I was saying. And you can say, I bet sex is more complicated for you because you tie it to your status. And I also think that, if I come up to you and I say, so, haven't been sleeping super well, and I think it's because of this new medication I'm taking. You can say, I bet every time you take that pill, it occurs to you all of these things that the reason why you have to take the pill, how much the pills cost, that it feels worse than just a little bit of insomnia because you're HIV positive. And so it's kind of my hope today that by sharing a little bit with everybody in this room, you get a little insight into what the day-to-day can be for me, certainly not for everyone in this room, and that you can see with greater eyes, greater perspective, the day in the life of me.